Hello, this is Jeff Corder, and I'm recording my comments on the first three chapters of the Book of Hosea for our Bible study group for Forest Hills Presbyterian Church. We talked last week about the Book of Hosea and about the history of the northern kingdom, which was created after the reign of King Solomon. You had Jeroboam and Rehoboam, who split over issue of taxes, and so the northern tribes created their own kingdom, and Jeroboam was their king. He created a capital in Bethel. He created a golden calf and a temple and a place of worship as an alternative to Jerusalem and the capital of the united monarchy of David and Solomon. So Hosea is written many generations after that. In the history of the northern kingdom, you have a succession of kings. You have a couple of famous prophets in the books of 1st and 2nd Kings. You have Elijah and Elisha, the prophet. Elijah went to King Ahab and his queen Jezebel. And so sometime after that, you have Hosea. A little bit of background: when Elijah prophesied and went to King Ahab and said, "God is God," there was the famous incident where Baal and Elijah and the prophets of Baal had competing prayers, and whoever's sacrifice to their God was the real God, rain of fire would come down from heaven and devour the sacrifice. That was Elijah. That was in 2nd Kings chapter 16, 17. Then Elijah continues on until he is chased by the armies of Jezebel, who is angry with him for his confrontation with her deity. Elijah turns over his mantle to Elisha. Elisha then is the prophet who has the successor to Ahab anointed, a man named Jehu. Jehu goes and kills King Ahab, takes over the throne, has Queen Jezebel killed, and then kills all of the king's sons, and so takes over the throne himself. Some generations after that, Hosea comes on the scene in the northern kingdom where all of this has happened. So one of the things that is in the book of Hosea is a mention of Jezreel. Jezreel is the name of one of Hosea's children. It's also the name of the capital that King Ahab set up in the northern kingdom. And so the word Jezreel means God sows. And so there's this whole play on what happened historically, referenced by the prophet Hosea some many years after Ahab has no longer been the king. So let us go kind of step by step through Hosea, and we'll learn a little bit here. I'm going to go quickly as I can through the first three chapters of the book of Hosea. It says, "The word of the Lord came to Hosea, son of Beeri, in the days of King Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah of Judah, and in the days of King Jeroboam, son of Joash of Israel." This is Jeroboam the second. This is not the original Jeroboam. Same name, different king. Now, Jeroboam the second had a long period of reign in Israel, which was the northern kingdom. And so Hosea starts his prophecy during Jeroboam II's reign. And then he mentions all these other kings of Judah Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, Hezekiah. That's because after Jeroboam, there's a succession of kings in the northern kingdom that only last a year or months, or maybe 2 years at the most. And so they're not named. But those are the people that are part of this history in the prophet Hosea. In verse 2, when the Lord first spoke through Hosea, the Lord said to Hosea, "Go take for yourself a wife of whoredom, and have children of whoredom, for the land commits great whoredom by forsaking the Lord." So he went and took Gomer, daughter of Diblaim, and she conceived and bore him a son. Now, whoredom meaning prostitution. So God tells Hosea, go find a prostitute and marry her. What an unusual request. Now, in the custom of the day, getting a wife meant paying for somebody. I spent some time in Afghanistan where the practice is still practiced, where if you wanted to marry somebody, you would go and you would give a dowry, and that person became your wife. Now, that might sound like slavery, and in some respects, it kind of was. But at the same time, that's what we're talking about here. And so he is buying a wife who's already been taking money for sexual services, as prostitutes did. That was something that was common. Some commentaries think that she might have been somebody who was used for Canaanite worship of idols, because temple prostitutes existed in those days. If that's the case, he's taking somebody from another religion and marrying her. This is an image of what the northern tribes of Israel represent to God. Somebody who has been carried away by false gods and goddesses. And so he takes this woman, Gomer, for his wife. And she, verse 4, and the Lord said to him, name him Jezreel, which means God sows, which was also the name of this city, where later on, the name Jezreel becomes the Valley of Megiddo. And if you're familiar with the book of Revelation, Armageddon is this Valley of Megiddo, which is Jezreel. So things are linked here. So the Lord says, name your son Jezreel. For in a little while I will punish the house of Jehu for the blood of Jezreel.